this kicks off our new masterclass series. We've got lots more coming, but really excited for this one. We're bringing in experts on all sorts of topics that I feel are absolute game changers for swimmers and triathletes and anyone wanting to improve their swimming. So we are just going to pop you all on mute. Yeah. So these are the topics that I really wish I'd had when I was first starting out with my swimming journey, and particularly open water. So Catch is all about like making it easy to transform your swimming. And yeah, so this really fits with what we exist to do. So if you don't know it, Catch is a digital swim coach. It's an app that combines personalized training plans with video technique lessons, one-to-one coaching, and a really supportive, vibrant community. So the topic we're talking about today is all about swim psychology. So this means such a lot to me. If you're on Catch, you might know already that I bang on a lot about training your mind first before you train your body. So mindset drives consistency and confidence and enjoyment and also performance. And I come from a competitive pool swimming background and then open water. I've done it like a lot. I've done it to an international level. And I think my biggest edge I had and continue to have is mindset. It's about having a positive mindset, a growth mindset. And this is what we're going to talk about today. It's all about giving the mind the proper airtime it deserves and setting you up really well for the year ahead of swimming. So I'm delighted to introduce today's expert, Rachel Collins. Rachel is a psychology coach with a background in competitive swimming and endurance sports, and she's also an amazing human. So yeah, she's going to share practical science-backed tools that are going to help you build habits that actually stick for your swimming. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Hi, everybody. It's really, really lovely to see so many of you. I'm really glad you can make it. So yeah, as Rebecca said, today we're looking at habits and how that can help form consistency, and then how that can help sporting performance. So although Rebecca has nicely introduced me, I just thought I would give you a little bit more background to myself first, just so you know kind of who I am and how I got into this work, and then we'll kind of dive into the sports psychology bits. So I'm originally in the UK, and I now live in Falun in Sweden. So it's currently -7 degrees and lots of snow. So I'm not swimming in any lakes at the moment, but during the summer on the left-hand side of the picture, you can see I love to, yeah, get in and have a good old open water swim there. So I've been involved in competitive sports since the age of 6, and that started out with swimming. And now I do mainly swim run, and then also quite a lot of orienteering. So how did I kind of get into this work? So the first thing that kind of led me into that was my own personal health journey. So in my kind of, yeah, mid-teens, I started to really suffer health-wise, really tired, lots of sore throats, infections, lots going on that didn't really have much explanation. And after quite a few years of tests and hospital visits, they found out that I had chronic Lyme's disease, which I contracted from a tick, probably from orienteering. And that kind of led to chronic fatigue, and my journey in kind of elite sport had to end. And it was really about rebuilding myself and yeah, getting back into exercise in a kind of more fun, holistic way. So I worked a lot with a sports psychologist at the time, and it really just sparked something in me that I don't think I would have got kind of through that time without her. And I thought, well, actually, I love sport. It's obviously, you know, something that's embedded in me. And I really love psychology. And I thought, well, I'll combine the two as well. So I did an undergrad and a master's degree in sport and exercise psychology, and then a further 2-year course in therapeutic coaching, which looked at more of a therapeutic angle to people that are struggling with things mentally. So once I had kind of qualified, set up my own business as an educator, so giving presentations and talks to groups, but then I also work one-to-one with clients as a psychology coach, and been doing that for 3.5 years now. Okay, great, enough about me. Let's get in. So the aims for today. So we're going to look at what a habit really is and why are they important in terms of sporting performance. We will then look at 3 different types of habits. So the good habits, the bad habits, and the keystone habits, and the roles that each of them play. During this series, this webinar series, we're going to take 1 mental skill per webinar. So we'll look at our first mental skill that will be useful for today, and then look at some extra little tips and hacks to keep you guys on track. And then at the end, I'll kind of show you a takeaway example outlining a simple habit plan that you can use to help build your own. Okay, so what is a habit? Now, this is probably something that you've heard of in everyday life. It's not necessarily some sort of very psychological term, but just to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page. And very simply, a habit is a behavior that is repeated over and over again until it becomes a subconscious action, i.e. you don't really have to think about it, i.e. cleaning your teeth, making dinner. Maybe you have to think about that a little bit in terms of what you want, but you kind of get the idea. So these are behaviors that are done that don't really require any kind of cognitive load. So why are habits important when it comes to sport and performance? Now, firstly, daily habits create consistency. And as you probably know, consistency is what gets us results. Habits allow for higher level tasks to occur. So for example, strategy and competition. Now, what I mean by that is if you think about habits as being subconscious, so things that you don't have to think about, it allows room and energy for us to think about higher level things that are more important. So how, will you strategize for that race? How are you best going to attack that competition? Routine is made up of habits, and this helps to minimize anxiety and gain control. So when we have habits and we have consistency and that creates a routine in our everyday week, it can help to minimize some anxious thoughts and allows us to gain control of other things in our environment. Also, habits create predictability because we know what it is that we can expect, and stability as well. So all in all, great things to create and also to build, but then we've obviously got the other part of how do we maintain that, and that's things that I will go through during the course of this presentation. Okay, so just breaking habits down first then. So we've got good habits. I'm sure we've all got some bad habits, myself included. And then keystone habits. So I'm just going to kind of talk you through each of these. So good habits are actions or behaviors that have a positive impact on progress and our performance. So for example, a habit that you probably do that is a habit because you don't really think about it anymore, and that's completely warm up before every training session. Okay, so getting the body ready, getting the mind ready. You probably really do a warm up without really thinking about it too much. A bad habit, so these are ones that can kind of hinder our progression and kind of stop us reaching our goals maybe so well. And an example of that, and one that I've been privy to in the past definitely, is not fueling well enough for a training session or even a competition. So whether that's fueling before, during, or even after, that's a habit that maybe some of us, it's a bad habit. We're not paying enough kind of attention to. And then a keystone habit, so the ones that we really kind of want to be looking at and focusing on. And this is one habit that has a ripple effect to allow other good habits to flow. Okay, so it's one habit that you start with that naturally other good habits fall from that. And so some examples. So if, for example, your keystone habit was that you train in the morning, that will help set you up for the day, which means you're more likely to eat well, be more productive at work, and you know that you need to get enough rest kind of during the day or in that evening. Another one is if we take time to plan out our days. So that's the kind of keystone, planning out our day, and then that allows us then good habits to form. So we get highly prioritized tasks completed first. We ensure we have enough time to train. We're creating space for ourselves. So when we think of habits, we can kind of divide them into these three areas. Now, what we really, of course, want to be focusing on is the keystone habits and the good habits, but also how do we change a bad habit into a good habit? Okay. And the thing is with bad habits, I know a lot of people kind of feel as though they need to get rid, erase bad habits, but I kind of like to use the word like replacing bad habits. So for example, if after a training session, you go to like the vending machine or you reach for a chocolate bar, for example. And so that could be the bad habit. Now, instead of just trying to eradicate that completely, you might just want to replace that with maybe a banana or a peanut butter on toast, or, whatever it may be. So that just gives you the kind of an example of how it is that we can swap out that bad habit, but make it into something good, because you've already got the premise there of fueling yourself after your training session. It's just that maybe you're not fueling yourself with the right stuff. And so by just replacing it, we've actually then made it a good habit, and actually we haven't had to do much work for it, because that subconscious part is already there. Hopefully that makes sense. Of course, and as Rebecca said, if you've got any questions throughout this, please just pop them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer any at the end. Okay, so enough of me rambling on for a few minutes. I would like you, with your pen and paper or whatever it is that you have near you that you can write down on, to currently write down 2 good habits that you have. Okay, so 2 good habits that you know that you already do, and then 1 habit that you're currently aware of, and then how that bad habit could be replaced by a good one. Okay, so that's the first thing. You're going to have some time, so don't rush too much. Second one is I want you to write down 1 keystone habit that you can introduce to your day-to-day. So what is 1 thing that you can do that's kind of an overarching habit that can help ripple smaller good habits from that? Okay, so 2 good habits, 1 habit that you could then replace, 1 bad habit that you could then replace with a good habit, and then just an idea maybe of a keystone habit that you can start to implement. So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to have a little think about that. If, of course, you don't have enough time, then you'll have the slides and you can always come back to the task, so that's not a problem. And then if you feel willing, I'd love to kind of read some of them as you're going along. So if you feel willing to pop any in the chat, then do that. But if you don't want to share, that's not a problem. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, just give you another minute or so. Okay, I think these webinars are also another great space to actually allow you to have the time to think about these things, because I think when you kind of listen to these webinars, if you don't have those interactive tasks, it can then be hard to kind of find time in your everyday to think about this. So just think that this is like time set aside really to kind of work on yourself and create that awareness and give you the space to do that. So if you still need obviously a few minutes to write that down, then come back to it whenever you feel, but hopefully you've kind of started to think about a few things, and that's kind of what we want there, so that's great. Okay then, so some top tips to help you build habits. Now, these are just a few points that I've got, and I've also made like a cheat sheet that's got like 10 or so other tips that I can share with you via email after. But these are kind of like the, ones that I feel like are really like doable when in terms of when you're making habits. So first of all, like make them small. So start with the smallest version of what it is that you're trying to achieve that's easy to maintain. Now, what I mean by that is if you go too big too soon, the actual being able to keep up that habit might not work so well and it might feel too overwhelming. So if you're trying to achieve a 20-minute stretch every day, for example, start with 5 minutes after each session. Yeah, so just start in smaller chunks, and then over the weeks or days build up to something bigger, and you'll be much more likely to be able to maintain that habit. Use clear cues. So tie your habit to something that already happens. Okay, so let's say that you want to set an intention for your swim. Every time before you get in the pool, you want to set an intention for that training session. So by using something that you tie onto a habit already, so obviously put your goggles on. Maybe it's that you take three deep breaths just to check in on what your intention is. So you're coupling up with something that you already do. Tracking consistency is really important in habits. It helps to build awareness and also helps with our motivation to kind of keep going with them. An example of this is you can write down a simple checklist and tick that off once it's done. Or if you have a visual log on, for example, on a wall calendar, and you can visually see yourself checking that off, can be another great thing to help track consistency. And then reward the habit. So rewards make the brain want to repeat that behavior, right? You know, we've done it. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I got a reward, I can do that again. So an example, so if you're going to start including some mental skills routines, kind of some kind of psychology things in your week, you can reward yourself with something enjoyable. So maybe a new swimming playlist, or maybe a nice bubble bath, or, you know, however that looks like. Just make sure maybe that the reward is actually a good habit. Maybe don't reward yourself with, like, you know, tons of chocolate and coffee and all this, but yeah, you know, nice cup of coffee, anything really, but just that helps you to kind of keep on board and keep wanting you to do it. A little pat on the back to yourself. Okay, so we're going to jump into the mental skills training for today. And some of you may have heard of mental skills training, some of you may have absolutely no idea what it is. So just like you train muscles in the gym, we can train our brain as well, okay? And mental skills training is, psychological training for the brain, okay? So they're skills that we can use in order to grow, learn, replicate, loads of things. Obviously, our brain is our driver, so everything that we do physically comes from up here. So this is kind of the place we need to start. And goal setting is going to be our mental skill of today, and is quite a nice one to introduce first, just because it's something that we've probably all heard of. It's something that we've potentially all done as well in our lives, in terms of training, maybe work, you know, it shows up in all different ways. And the reason why it's a mental skill is because it requires like a cognitive process. Okay, so things like planning, focus, and self-regulation. Okay, so there's some examples of why it's called a mental skill. So let's say, for example, that we're doing some goal setting, and it might be that you want to swim your longest distance yet this year. Maybe that's 2K, maybe that's 5K, maybe that's 10K, however that looks for you, okay? I did see some goals coming up in the chat, and I was really super impressed. So maybe it's a specific race that you're training for, you know, whatever it is, that's your goal. Now, goal setting is really great because it helps create direction and it helps us to maintain motivation. It helps to measure progress. So we can obviously do one big goal, but then we can also plot mini goals in between, short-term goals, mid-term goals, in order to get us to that big long-term goal that we have at the end. And so goal setting then, yeah, helps break down those long-term goals into daily actions. And it's the habits that make those daily actions stick. Okay, so I've got a little visual representation for those of you that like if your brain works similar to me. Okay, so the red is, think of it as like a skimming stone, yeah? So that is our daily habits, okay? Going along every day, creating ripples, creating movement. And the gemstones are our kind of midterm goals, okay? So we're doing consistent daily habits which build to help achieve our midterm goals. And then at the end of that, we have our long-term goal that we want to achieve. Nice paradise island somewhere. And so it's just a visual representation of how we kind of start that motion with the habits. Okay, that creates traction, that helps us to achieve our short-term goals, mid-term goals, and eventually that will of course lead us into our long-term goals, because without consistency, without those daily habits, it will be hard to achieve those goals in between to get to our long-term goal. Okay, so a simple habit plan. Now this is just something that I've put together that is going to help to show you how to build week on week those habits. And also I've underlined some things that will link to those kind of hacks and top tips that we saw, and just, yeah, give you an example of how these things can kind of come about and build. So let's say that our keystone habit, so in brackets that first one, K, that's our keystone habit. So let's say that 3 times a week, I'd like to complete my pull session in the morning on a Monday, a Tuesday and a Thursday, okay? A good habit that I want to be part of that is that at least one of these sessions a fortnight I will introduce a new skill, a new drill, sorry, or skill. So from every session now on, you're going to give yourself an intention and you're going to repeat that on your warm-up routine, okay? So you'll set your intention when, for example, when you're putting your goggles on, you know what your intention is when you're before you get into the pool, and then when you're on your warm-up, you're going to kind of repeat what that intention is, so that you've set yourself the pre-frame of what you want to achieve out of that session. So on week 1, and this can literally not necessarily have to include any habits themselves, this can literally be like the task that we did. Just think about what it is that you need to create. What good habits, what keystone habits do you need to create in the first week? Like sit down, brainstorm, however, you know, use colors, visual, however you like to do it, but just get really clear on what habits it is that you need to create in order to help reach those kind of mid and eventually the long-term goal. So then on week 2, we're clear, we've got our habits, we know what's happening at the end of week 1. So in week 2, we start small, remember? So we want to not get overwhelmed, and therefore we get put off from doing the habit. So we start small, and maybe the first week 2, we just action 1 early morning swim in that week. And we set an intention for that session. Okay, so that's the kind of first. And then in week 3, so you continue to do your 1 early morning swim, and then it may be that now is the fortnight is up and we want to include the new drill to focus on. So that's our other habit. So you set an intention for putting the session where you should put your goggles on. So that's the kind of coupling of habits. So building a habit that's coming off the back of something you already do. Then, for example, week 4, it might feel like, okay, I'm going to try and now reach that second early morning swim. So we're still building quite smallly. You're setting your intentions for them. And it might be that you ask a friend if they'd like to join you. You go for a coffee afterwards. Now, this is great for 2 reasons. One, it's a reward. It's based in the reward system. So asking a friend, going for a coffee. But also it's accountability. Yeah, so you're getting someone to kind of, help you build these habits. And then for week 5, you will continue with those 2 early morning sessions. You'll set your intentions, and then maybe it's time to introduce your next drill. And then you reward yourself with something, for example, a new training planner, like a training log, or a planner, so you can plan out that. So this is a really like simple habit plan that you can see how it starts. First of all, you want to get clear on what it is that you're doing. That's most important. Okay, what habits is it that you need to build? Keystone ones and good habits. And then it's about, okay, breaking that down. I need to start small. How is it that I can, what's not too overwhelming, what actually feels feasible, and then, you know, rewarding yourself with that, and so on and so forth. Give yourself time to, in that first week, to really get clear on your habits, but then create that plan so you can see week by week your progress. That will help with motivation, which obviously helps with succeeding and performing. Okay, great. So remember your keystone habits, okay? Because that will just help to just, like that ripple effect, that will just help to make the good habits flow. Keep track of your progress until it feels like the habit is done subconsciously. So keep going with the habits until eventually you feel like, well, it's not a habit anymore because you're just doing it involuntary. And then remember that habits equals consistency, which equals goals, and that equals progress. Okay, so these like tiny, tiny stepping stones that will grow, baby steps, and get you to where you need to be. Brilliant. Okay. So a thank you from me. I've got mine and Rebecca's Instagram handles up there with lots of good things if you want to kind of keep on board, and of course our email addresses if you'd like to contact either of us. If you'd like this free cheat habit sheet, then do feel free to email me at hello@rachel-.com, and I will happily send that over to you in a PDF file. You can print it out, stick it up somewhere. It's got lots of more kind of hacks and good tips in how to build and maintain those habits. And then as a thank you for coming, those of you that are on Catch Free, you'll receive 10% off of both my one-off 90-minute session, and then also if you're interested in a free month package, I offer 6 sessions of 60 minutes. And then if you're on Catch Gold, then to reward you even further, you'll get 20% off of those. Just to flag now as well, we do have 3 other sessions. So 2nd of Feb, we're going to look at mindset. We're going to look at growth versus fixed mindset. 2nd of March, training versus performance mindset. And then 23rd of March, overcoming imposter syndrome. And even if you don't experience imposter syndrome yourself, I actually generally think it's such an interesting topic, and if psychology is something that you're interested in, then of course feel free to come along. Okay, Rebecca, that's me. We've got 15 minutes for Q&A.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I loved that so much. I was scribbling down lots. I love that idea of the keystone habits. Love the idea of starting small. There's so much good stuff in there. So yeah, thanks you for sharing your wisdom. We're going to kick off the Q&A. I'll get us started. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We've got, about just under 15 minutes. So yeah, one of my questions, Rachel, was from a psychology perspective, what tends to be more powerful to do first? If it's someone who's starting out, new year, trying to get started with good habits around swimming, is it better to set the habits first and like start small and start thinking about how many times a week could you commit to swimming and setting those habits up and setting the keystone habit? Or is it better to set the goal and then the habits follow that? Do you think there's one or the other that tends to be better practice?
I would actually say go for the goal first and work back. So set the main goal, have your kind of overarching thing that you want to achieve, and then work backwards. So, okay, if I want to achieve this, then what is it midterm and short-term goals do I need to do in order to get there? And then back from that, okay, what habits do I need to create that's going to sustain these smaller goals? So you're almost starting with the kind of big and going to the very tiny. And I don't want to take away anything from habits. Even when I call them tiny, it doesn't make them any, of course, any less important. It's just kind of, habits obviously are the ones that feel most manageable to create the habits and work with them. Then that consistency will then lead to like training sessions, things that you need to do, which will then lead to achieving, oh, okay, I hit that short-term goal after like a month, say, or, you know, I've hit that and actually I'm on target, and actually, whoa, this could happen, with that kind of long-term goal being at the end. So, and I think as well, something, if that feels like too much, you can go the other way. What I would do is still pick your long-term goal. What is it that you're hoping to achieve? And then ask yourself, say like, that's going to happen in 6 months, 7 months time. You've got a race in the summer, for example. And then you could ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do in this 6 to 7 months that's going to get me there? What is it that I need to achieve and be doing consistently that's going to be the answer to me being able to achieve that goal? And that might also help to think of some kind of keystone and good habits that you need to think about in that time.
Love that. Thank you. Matthew in the chat has asked, any tips for keeping your mind focused when you're doing 5 to 10K swims? So for context, a 5K swim is thought to be the equivalent of a half marathon in running.
Okay.
And a 10K swim is thought to be a marathon distance. So we're talking long times here.
Hours. Yeah.
And Matthew, I don't know if you're able to come off mute and kind of confirm this, but are you talking about boredom or like the mind drifting, or is there a particular angle to this? The mute button's at the bottom if you're there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just when you're doing like a 5 or 10K swim, it's keeping your mind occupied with it and keeping focused and on track. Just any tips on that will be very gratefully received.
Yeah, love that question. Well, Rachel, you answer it from a psychology perspective, and then I'm happy to answer that from a sort of swimming coaching perspective.
Go for it. Let's tag team.
Perfect.
So I mean, psychology wise, I think the main kind of thing for me is like remembering the why. So why is it that you're doing it? Why did you sign up? Why did you put in all those hours training? Why did you turn up on the day? And that should hopefully like be a good starting point to kind of re-spark that motivation, like during a swim. I think quite often when we're in that kind of competition and things are just happening, we often can lose sight of that, and we're just in the moment. But if you think of all those kind of hours that you put in, then I think that will really help to kind of re-spark that. But also I think a level of acceptance, like it's a long time, whether you're swimming, whether you're running, whether you're cycling, whatever endurance things that you're doing, you're gonna have moments where you're like, what am I doing? Like, you know, we've all been there. So I think like just maybe in those moments, not necessarily like trying to fight it straight away, just like accept that, okay, this is how I'm feeling. And then if you've got some like good like backup kind of tools, like maybe like little mantras or something that you've said to yourself, or any like mottos that can like help like kind of get you going, any like buzzwords that will help to kind of keep you focused and back in, breaking up that swim into like smaller, more manageable sections, so that of course when you then come to like doing it and you're in that, then you're only just working to the next pillar, and you're not like trying to work all the way to the finish line. So you're just focusing on the bit that you're on now and being in the moment. That will help to take like the kind of overwhelm and the potential boredom or whatever it is that feels like it's so far away. It will help it to like feel closer. I mean, they're the kind of main things that I can think of the top of my head. Rebecca, I don't know whether you've kind of got anything to add from a swim point.
That's so good. You summarised so many things there that I would have also drawn on. That idea of having a reason why you're doing it that feels so exciting that it will push you through those tough times, and knowing that the boredom, the lack of focus, like it will happen. It's sort of inevitable, right? During training, maybe during an event, there'll be other things that are challenging, which are sort of around self-belief or how bloody hard it feels. But I think knowing that that is coming, and as Rachel said, having a bit of acceptance and a bit of a plan as to how you'll counter that is so helpful. And there's a few hacks as well for training that might be worth thinking about, which is number one, finding ways to vary your sessions. So on Catch, we're always trying to introduce people to these longer swims by making them as interesting and fun as possible. So I would say that idea that Rachel mentioned about breaking it up psychologically, you can also do that by introducing certain drills, pieces of kit, resting. Adele mentioned in the chat there about feeding, which is like when you take a break to have some food. And having a bit of a plan, like as Adele mentioned in the chat, having a bit of a plan as to what you're actually gonna think about, having some songs. Some people even wear waterproof headphones now. So yeah, there's ways you can kind of go about that and like plan for it. And as Rachel said, I think accepting the boredom, and if you're good at spending time by yourself in your own head, it's a superpower for endurance swimming. So it's practice as well, and like building that muscle. Yeah,
definitely.
Great. Well, we've got another question here from Catherine. Building habits in family life, great question. So yeah, I suppose, and also like with family, we also have challenges with juggling family with swimming, right? Like many people on this call will have this juggling act. So yeah, any recommendations, Rachel, for how those habits can kind of bleed into family life, and how you can kind of handle that juggling act and that mental load?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that I work on quite a lot with kind of athletes, is how do you be an athlete, but how do you also be a mum, be a daughter, whatever it may be. Obviously you've got work life as well potentially, so it's a lot. So I think a little bit like the habit plan in the beginning, I think actually just sitting down and like working out, and this might be a weekly thing, maybe something that you do on a Sunday or a Monday morning or whatever, but spending the time to actually work out, okay, what do I kind of need to get out of this week? So that could be training wise, that could be anything particular on that's going on at work. It can be, what clubs do I need to get my kids to? Just kind of put it all down, lay it out there in front of you. And then from that, you can, when I think you can visually see things, I think it helps really the brain to see it instead of like ruminating and thinking, just actually like get it down on paper. So once you kind of got an idea, and it might be that weekly, things are very similar, so you can soon start to build a picture and a pattern of what it is that needs to be done. And then I guess what I would do is maybe highlight the area that you feel maybe needs like the most attention, maybe that area that you feel is the first to go in that priority list. And if it's a case that there's a conflict and you don't want it to be, like, let's say, for example, that the swimming training session is the first thing to go if something else has come up, but actually you really want to try and put your swimming near the top of the list because you're trying to achieve X goal in the next 6 months. And so it's about talking to those people around you, getting that kind of support in place, getting everybody on board. Communication is like really key to all the kind of key players in life. And then working out a plan of, okay, let's say that I missed that training session because I had to take X to a hospital appointment, or whatever it may be. When you're doing your training plan, allow for that flexibility, allow for that backup. Know that, maybe one day you might have to do like a double training, or accept the fact that, okay, you haven't managed to do that one, but I will make sure that the other 4 sessions this week I can complete. So in terms of them building habits, I think it's, a very similar thing. Like, it could be as simple as getting your swim bag ready the night before, so that in the morning when you're trying to get the kids out ready to school, you don't forget something simple, that when you turn up to your swimming session, you haven't got your goggles. Just like really little things like that, like building those kind of habits that may seem really trivial, but actually are the kind of pillars to creating that organization and keeping things on track.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rachel. And thanks for these great questions. I'm just going to combine a couple of questions here, which is, Peter mentioned it's quite hard to switch between like long, steady endurance swimming and like more focused swimming, bringing in bits of kit and working on technique with things like drills. And then there was also a question here about like, what are the mini goals that you should be looking ahead to do something like a 5 mile, which is a long distance. So I guess just to sort of bundle all of those up, it's all important. I think if you're jumping between, you know, working on your technique by doing things like drills, one session, and then moving to longer distance swims in another session, and also playing with your pace, so swimming faster, practicing swimming faster than you would in an event, this is all part of the mix of really important swimming skills that you need to do if you're going to perform at your best. So with those mini goals, I would say like number one highest impact for most people who are training for something like a 5 mile is to make changes to your technique. Most people are at that point in their swimming journey where there's still lots of positive change that can be made. So I would say number one, focus on your technique. That is a goal in itself. Am I feeling smoother in the water? When someone videos me swimming, do I look different? Do things feel like they're changing for the better? I like to set people like mini technique goals on catch. So each week or each month, people will work on something different that's relevant to their goal. So I think technique changes and mini goals around technique are super important. I would say also feeling comfortable swimming further is also important. So feeling more comfortable on those longer distances, being able to feel like you're managing fatigue, you're managing the mental challenges that we've been talking about. Those were all really good mini goals. And then finally, pace. So playing with your pace, with your fitness is so important. So doing bursts of faster swimming and seeing your pace improve. If you have a way to measure it, like a sports watch is brilliant. And sorry, Rachel, these are swimming specific questions,
No,
but I just thought I'd share.
I'm learning.
Good. And you've got a swimming background, so that's good.
Yeah.
And then final question there, which is from Tim about how do you like habit suggestions for helping keep up a steady pace for a long distance? I tend to find that just looking at average pace overall for a long distance is much more useful than constantly trying to look at your watch and see, you know, in the moment what pace you're swimming at. It's not very practical looking at your watch all the time. So I'd say just set your dials so that you can see your overall average pace, and then occasionally take a breather to look at it. Or as you're turning at the wall, just glance at it and see like, how is that average pace looking? Is it going higher than you want it to be? Are you overshooting it and going faster than you need to? That would be my top tip for how you set up your Garmin to be able to manage that challenge. Any final words of wisdom, Rachel, before we wrap up?
Ooh, any final words of wisdom? I mean, first of all, like, you're here, you showed up. So that to me is like, you care about this subject and you want to get better. So please feel free, if you've got any questions that you've processed afterwards, drop me an email. Happy to get back to you another time. And kind of takeaway, I guess, is, yeah, build the keystones and make it manageable, because from there you'll start from a good place and you'll be able to, yeah, grow in that area.
That's great. What a great note to end on. Thanks you, Rachel. You've made it all feel so much more manageable and accessible, brilliant. I think, which is amazing. Swim psychology can be a really complex thing, but you've made it seem so simple. So yeah, huge thanks for sharing your expertise with us. Lots of thank yous in the chat there.
Yeah, and that's great. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, definitely really recommend you drop Rachel a line if you want to make the most of her kind offer there of a free consultation. We will be uploading this video most likely to YouTube in answer to your question, Anna. So I'll share that on email. And yeah, huge thanks again. Everyone enjoy your evening. Thanks for joining us.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.